Chosen men to me! French bastard! Gentlemen, today we're looking at one of the first mass military-issued rifles of its day, the British Baker rifle. The Baker rifle, made by Ezekiel Baker in 1800, saw global use. From North and South America, the Peninsula Campaign, fighting at Waterloo, and even showed up at the Alamo. And in this video, I want to go over the legend that is the Baker rifle and why I think it's so dang cool. The Baker rifle not only has a massive historical significance in the evolution of warfare, but it also has a great personal significance thanks to one particular author. But of course, we'll get to that later in the video.
The Baker rifle was a complete game changer for the British Army. Who's this guy?
To better understand the inception of the Baker rifle, we have to understand the British military of its day. February 1st, 1793, France declares war on Britain, and Britain's military is in a bad way. There was a distrust of the military for many reasons, and it was also massively hurting for manpower. And unlike today, enlisting in the military was not really seen as a desirable or noble line of work. Back in the day, if anything, it was pretty much a death sentence. The vibe one gets from this era is that like the dregs of society are the ones that enlist in the military. The ones that are like trying to avoid being hung for their crimes. They're like, I guess I'll just live and go serve in the military. So it's not a very sought after line of work. At the outbreak of war, Britain had just under 40,000 troops compared to France's 550,000. And on top of that, a lot of those troops were spread out globally, protecting Britain's foreign interests. Not only was it short on manpower, but it also suffered from outdated ways of thinking. For example, it desperately needed more light infantry troops. Oh, I thought you were a crapo, laddie. Well, I know I ambushed you on the toilet, drinking your coffee, eating your beer. So make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section down below, or else old Boney's gonna get you. We can't have that. Gentlemen, if the sinews of war are gold, then the sinews of YouTube are sponsorships. I have dropped many good golden guineas on this video, and I must recoup my investments. Sadly, this company does not sell the shop's officer uniform of the 95th Rifles, but what they do have is other wares and items. They have electric steeds to carry you on the battle. Though expensive, most good things in life are Japanese cutlery for enjoying Japanese things. Fanciful devices that let you see in the night, so you can see if any crapos are creeping upon you. And of course, their bread and butter, the military surplus. A wide litany of elusive clothing that you can use to bolster your wardrobe. Perhaps you can LARP the Battle of Waterloo in your mother's basement, or any other time period. So of course, a huge thank you to Americana Pipe Dream Apparel. Those damn Yanks have a discount code. Using code ADMIN gets you 10% off the entire order. I'd bet you my last shilling that the men of the South Essex would wish they had this next sponsor, Optics Planet. In this modern day and age of fanciful glass and optics, I have seen their collection. They have quite the fanciful telescopes for optimal precision of putting lead shots downrange. And of course, we must thank Badlands Munitions. Located in the old Spanish colonies of Arizona, they provide you some of the finest lead to sling on the flat range. I doubt they make any lead projectiles for the brown bess of the Baker rifle, but what they do have are fine projectiles in the form of .308, .556, and 9mm. Oh, and they even have .300 Blackout. I'm quite fond of the .300 Blackout. If George Washington was alive today, would he be a liberal, a Republican? No, he would be fond of .300 Blackout. Damn you, sir! I can't do a good British accent, but I can do that, whatever the hell that is. Linear warfare. Now, to understand light infantry, we have to understand warfare of this era. One of my least favorite misconceptions is that the people from this era, they're all dumb because they fight in this type of linear formations. And when we look back at this now, we all think that they're dumb and stupid for doing this. When in reality, this is probably the best way to do it given the circumstances and technology that they have access to. If anything, people often forget that we still fight in formations today. They're just a little bit more evolved in how we maneuver. To better understand this era of warfare, we kind of have to also step into a mental time machine. Movies like The Patriot don't really help paint a light for this type of warfare for what it probably really was, and it's kind of a big disservice. I love in those movies where they just arbitrarily stand off 30 paces, and arbitrarily yet again, it's like they decide who shoots first, and then they take turns, and it's like, all right, we won, they ran away. Let's break it down to the minutia of it. The individual soldier, the man armed with a musket. But then you have to ask, okay, well, how do we even get to that guy? And the answer is pike and shot. Pike and shot predates the era that we're currently covering. It was a time when armies were equipped with pikemen and some type of missile troop for infantry. This is when muskets were still in their infancy. They weren't as widespread, they were still probably more expensive to produce, and they were a little bit more finicky. So you needed protection from enemy threats, and the pikemen were there to protect your musketmen. And it was a symbiotic relationship. Musketmen can shoot out to distance, the pikemen can protect you up close. Pike and shot era is actually really cool. You just summarize the whole thing because it's pretty much just knights with guns. Cody of Alt History has a really cool video on this, and I think he covered it fantastically. As the musket became more prevalent, so did the bayonet. There were different iterations. You would have like a plug bayonet, and you eventually develop like ring or socket bayonets. Essentially, the speed run is bayonets got more advanced, therefore pikes were rendered obsolete. Now every musket man has a melee option, thus allowing a better military asset that you could work with. For the sake of brevity, we're going to speed up and just get to 18th and 19th century linear warfare. Now, when you go down the Baker rifle rabbit hole, one tends to become a fan of the Napoleonic history. This is not for the casuals, fellas. I never thought as I stared down the barrel of 30 that I would have such an interest in the Napoleonic Wars. You really can't stress enough the importance of the bayonet in this era of warfare, but we'll just look at the musket. From everything I've been reading, it seems that well-disciplined troops can get off 3 to 4 rounds a minute from their musket. What makes a good soldier? You have to ask yourself. That would be the ability to fire 3 rounds a minute in any conditions. And well, we got some damn good conditions today. A little bit windy, not too bad. Borderline bone dry, so we should have a chance. We're gonna start loaded in the gun. Timer will be on the editing timeline, and I have my paper cartridges. We're doing no patch, going for mass speed. Whether we're an infantryman with a brown bess or an infantryman with a Baker rifle. Shooter, are you ready? Stand by. Okay, that was, not my best work, but we managed to fight through it, as Richard Sharp would expect us to. Let's go check our hits. Man, of the 4 technically fired, we had 1 and then 3 reloads. Not great accuracy. I should be able to do better. One more time. All right, I got 3 cartridges left. My handmade cartridges, unpatched. Look at that. I will say there is a challenge with the Baker rifle, unlike the brown bess, and that is when you're doing a cartridge load like this, because of the size of the ball, the tolerances are just tight enough to where after you dump the powder, you can't just like dump the whole cartridge in there. Like if I had a brown bess, I'd pretty much just prime my pan and then dump the rest of the cartridge into the brown bess bore and just ram it home without even thinking about it. With this, I have to like essentially get the ball out, or else I have to use my starter rammer to get it in there because it's so tight. So we'll start unloaded and then we'll do a loading procedure. All right, Colton, say when. When. Get out, damn you. Come on. I want to be a chosen man, damn it. Wasting too much damn powder. Sergeant Harper's gonna have me on a charge for that. 1 tap's good, laddie, come on! The French are coming! Damn, she's getting cooking. She's hotter than a Spanish whore, laddies. Get in that goddamn bore. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Smooth will keep you alive. All right. Woo, barrel's cooking. Let's go check those hits. Let me find my focus. We got some on target. Let's go show the camera. I think I'm doing better. 3 shots, 3 hits, boys. 1, 2, 3. Can't miss them to the size of your thumb. We're knocked in. Depending on the time, maybe Captain Sharp will think of me as being a chosen man. Maybe not. But god damn, it's hot here. Hey, Ramrod Actual here. Today we're going over the methodology I used when I was in the line infantry under Sir Arthur Simerson, who honestly was a real jack pudding, but nonetheless we got. Now the musket of its day suffered from a steep drop-off in accuracy out to distance. I came across an interesting tidbit from Robert Griffin's Rifleman book. Fun fact, this book also contains 2 other sources I used for this video. Rob of British Muzzleloaders was mentioned in this book, which I thought was really fun. And then another book I already owned, which was British military flintlocks from 1740 to 1840. I thought that was pretty fun. I was like, hey man, this research is really all tying together. It's like a funny Easter egg. Hi Rob. In the book, he says that the Prussian military conducted an exercise where a platoon of ordinary line infantry shot at a squadron of cavalry-sized targets. Out of 1,000 rounds fired at 100 paces, only 40% of the balls hit the targets. When they moved out to 200 paces, it dropped down to 20% accuracy out of 1,000 rounds. I think another thing to note on the minutia is that line infantry like this, when everyone fires a volley, it greatly obscures your field of view. I think that's something that's kind of forgotten a little bit. Like imagine just, all right, fire, and then there's a huge smoke cloud right in front of you. It's like, all right, what's happening now? Oh no.
Oh, the Baker rifle could easily hit a man over 1,000 yards. Easily.
It says so in the scriptures. All right, we're gonna zoom back out to the bigger picture of warfare of this era. Like most of human history's warfare, we have infantry, cavalry, and some form of artillery. Artillery in this era is a massive deal with cannons. Way bigger of a deal than at any other point in human history. Cannons are a big old deal in this era. Sir, we have brought the big Chungus guns to battle. Now in this era, the infantry can't really advance on the enemy in a loose formation due to a fear of being run down by cavalry. This is why you would see them fighting shoulder to shoulder. There's even more intricacies you can get into this with like the timing and pacing of marches for executing commands on the battlefield, but I'm still trying to keep this like relatively simple. In theory, if there's a cavalry charge coming at your infantry will form square, and a square to repel the cavalry because now a horse has to potentially charge into a bristling square of bayonets while guys are also shooting at them, and the horse may not be down for that. Now, when the guys do form square, they're also gonna be vulnerable to the enemy artillery that can see them and then start shooting at them. So once the cavalry leaves, your ideal is to get out of there so you're not all clumped together and get back online. So that way, if there's a cannonball that comes in, it doesn't take out a handful of you, maybe it only takes out maybe one or a couple of you if you're all on the line. Another thing to consider is that even if you were in a loose formation when you met with the enemy, potentially the tighter packed formation could overpower the looser packed infantry, whether through sheer firepower or just through a bayonet charge. Like when you start really playing with it, this is where this type of warfare starts to make more sense when you unpack it. It's not just some arbitrary, stupid way of fighting, but it's very much steeped in a why behind it. With what we know with modern warfare, right? If you like stood up in a field, shoulder to shoulder, you would all get mowed down by machine guns. But in this era, it, funny enough, ensures one of the greatest chances of survival through strict discipline and cohesion and sticking together. Like even when you think back to the Prussian example at 100 paces, it's like, yeah, they may be shooting at you, but technically if you're far enough away, your chances are pretty dang good at survival. Now to tie this back into the light infantry aspect. I said that the line infantry couldn't advance in loose order. That's because it would be the job of the light infantry. Unlike when you play Total War Empire, as a commander, in real life, you probably wouldn't be able to see everything that's going on the battlefield. It also takes time to deploy a massive amount of guys for these battles. That's where the light infantry comes into play. They go forward and screen their formation while the infantry gets deployed into their battle line. That way, if the enemy has light infantry, they just can't free range harass your own guys. And then if, say, they don't have light infantry, then your light infantry can free range harass those guys. One may think, well, if there's light infantry out in the open in loose formation, why doesn't the cavalry just come out and ride them down? And that would be an excellent question. You are quite intuitive, viewer. You are quite quizzical, whimsical, and smart. I wish to capture your bravado. I think an easy answer to this is that horses are mortal creatures and they also get tired. I could also see where a commander doesn't want to waste a potentially crucial cavalry charge on a bunch of light infantry that's just gonna get out of the way once the real battle starts. It could happen though, wars are crazy. Another thing is, depending on how close light infantry is to the regular line infantry, those light troops could just fall back and then now your cavalry is exposed to a bunch of infantry and you don't want to waste that asset. Even if they do succeed, now you run the risk of the horses being overexposed or tired or just caught between the battle lines, and it's just not ideal. What I'm trying to get at with this is that everything kind of really has a give and a take. There's a if this, then that kind of approach for this era of warfare. And that still applies to like any point of history. It's just yet again trying to break the conception that this era is dumb. Like for whatever reason, it feels like no one criticizes the era of formations with sword warfare. But once we introduce muskets that suck still, everyone's like, wow, they fight like that? You bastards. Because you dumb bastards, this is how we fight. Major Lennox answered with his life, sir. And if you had any sense of honor, you would have done the same. Like really, a whole secret goal of this video is to really just dispel the notion that these people were dumb, okay? I will not have this slanderous propaganda for this awesome era of history. Now, of course, as technology advances, this type of linear warfare would eventually go the way of the dodo. And that technology would have to do with rifles. Now, the rifle we're going over today is the 1800 infantry rifle. It was made by Ezekiel Baker, and the Army Board of Ordnance put out a request, and there was many different rifles submitted, but Ezekiel Baker's was selected.
The Baker rifle was a complete game changer for its day, for unlike the British Brown Bess, which was a smoothbore musket, the Baker rifle was a rifle.
Now, this did not change linear warfare overnight, nor were rifles anything new at this time. At this point in time, rifle muskets had been out for a number of years, but there was a reason why they weren't as widespread throughout the armies. That being said, rifles were still being used in many militaries, and even in some line infantry regiments, there could be some sprinkled amongst them. Some of the rules aren't as hard and fast as one may think. That being said, the rifles weren't as prevalent as the Baker rifle was about to make them be. German Jaeger rifles were a very popular thing of this era, and I would dare say very much an inspiration for the Baker rifle. In DeWitt Bailey's book, Military Flintlocks, some of those Jaeger rifles look like pretty much Baker rifles. And on top of Jaeger rifles, there were also very cool rifles of the day. For instance, there was a Ferguson breech loading rifle where you could load it from the breech, hence the name, but those were only made in a small number. Or you had the Giardoni air rifle, which is a rifle that uses compressed air in the 18th century, which is wild. Not only does it use compressed air, but it has a magazine of ammo. But yet again, those things are a little bit more expensive and finicky though. And if you watch any Forgotten Weapons, he usually has some very interesting multiple shot flintlocks on there, whether it's like a magazine of ammo or some very intuitive way of loading multiple shots in there. So there are options of really advanced firearms for the era, but usually it always comes down to logistics. Whether these cool guns are just too finicky, too expensive to make, just not enough of them. Usually the finicky and expensive to make will reduce the numbers for a military that need to equip thousands and thousands of guys. And the British were looking to equip a lot of guys as light infantry, and they wanted to equip their light infantry with rifles. The British also wanted to not spend much money to do this, but rifles of this era in their mass production were still just as expensive. Say for the Baker rifle, it cost 97 shillings to make as opposed to the 15 shillings to make a Brown Bess musket. Apparently in today's money, 97 shillings is like $650 to $700, and then 15 shillings is like $100 to $110, which is crazy to think you could equip a soldier with like $100 weapon and be like, all right, get out there. Go get some killing done. Now, the Baker rifle was not issued to every British rank-and-file soldier. It was purpose-built for a new type of experimental battalion, the 95th Rifles.
The formation of the 95th Rifles wasn't just about a formation of a new unit, but a formation of a new set of ideals in warfare.
The 95th was authorized by the British War Office to be an experimental corps of riflemen, all of them, of course, being armed with rifles. Now, to better understand this, let's look at the British battalion of this era. In the battalion, you have 10 companies, 1 light infantry company, 1 grenadier company, and 8 line infantry companies, and of course, all the support staff and officers that go along with it. Now, from the vibe I get, and depending on the year and theater of warfare that they're in, the light infantry company may have some rifles, but they wouldn't be mass adopted yet like they would be with the 95th Rifles. One thing that makes the 95th Rifles so interesting, besides their dope green jackets, would be their culture. In the 95th Rifles, there was much more of a spirit of free thinking and a little bit more of a hardship due to the style of living that the troops would undergo. Officers often endured the hardship of lifestyle that went into this type of light infantry, and they trained amongst their men. The men themselves were granted more live ammunition to train with to ensure that they would be better marksmen on the battlefield. In the 95th, men would even be separated into different style of categories for their marksmanship abilities. And these guys were pushing out to ranges of 300 yards in an era of 100 paces is like a 40% hit factor. The 95th were not the only troops doing this. There was also the 5th Battalion, 60th Royal American Rifles, which even as far as their formation goes, way predate the 95th, and they were of course at a lot of Napoleonic battles. And they were also using Baker rifles.
Damn you, sir! You will cease the Roblox mimetic theatrics right away, sir!
Fredrickson in the Sharp series is of the Royal American Rifles. Now, when we think of this era of riflemen, typically everyone always thinks of the 95th, but the Royal American Rifles are actually, from what I was reading, pretty badass, and Wellington thought very highly of them.
God is not on the side of the big battalions, but of the best shot!
Now, with the obvious advantages of a rifle, why were muskets still being used? Now, while far more accurate, the rifles of this era were far more slower to load compared to their musket counterparts. At least if you really wanted to get the most accuracy out of your rifle. Now in this era, everyone's using a lead ball for their projectile. With a rifle, you need some sort of patch to help grip the grooves inside of the rifle. This would make it slower to reload, and as opposed to a musket where you can just drop a ball that is slightly smaller than the diameter of the bore, much faster to reload than a rifle. Now in theory, you could do the same thing for your rifle if you were in a pinch where you just take the ball and forego the patch if you were, maybe really close to the enemy, but yet again, you're trying to get the most accuracy out of this thing as possible. So in the grand scheme of things, they're far slower to reload. Also with a rifle, the more you shoot, the harder it becomes to reload. I've personally experienced this where it's like you start shooting a bunch and then you pretty much are like really ramming it down the barrel with a lot of force. It becomes very tricky. Even in my personal experience, taking these things out to the flat range, using a brown bess and using a Baker, I feel like shooting the brown bess is far faster in conjunction with cartridges, and of course I'll use cartridges for both, but I feel far faster with the brown bess, especially if there's no patching involved whatsoever. It's pretty obvious once you go out and try it. We really want to get to an era of the mass adoption of the rifled infantry musket until the Minié ball becomes far more prevalent. That being no need for any sort of patching because the projectile itself expands and can grip the rifling. Now you may be asking, well, why don't you use a Minié ball style projectile on your Baker rifle? And that would has to do with the style of twist rates. Twist rates even in this era are important. Twist rates have always been important for projectiles, and it is not compatible with this type of twist rate. Now coming back to this era and coming back to cartridges. Cartridges are very much a thing and very important for this style of warfare because on all fronts, whether you're using a musket or a rifle, it greatly speeds up the reload time because everything you need for your projectile is contained in some paper. And whether it's a wrapped ball in that cartridge or just loose, it does speed up the process. Now Rob from British Muzzleloaders has done quite a bit of experimenting with the cartridge patch and ball method for the Baker rifle from this era, but it seems like the general consensus is no matter what, trying to use a patch with this, it's still slower to load than without a patch just because it's that much tighter to get it down the barrel, though more accurate. Personally, if I was a rifleman from this era, I of course would have both options on me. I would have my distance shooting setup where it's like I know I have more time to reload an accurate projectile with a patch, but say the French were getting really close, I would start using my cartridges of just powder and ball and reloading as fast as possible, getting those shots off until I guess I'd use a bayonet. That's what I would do.
You know what I think you are, Duco?
I think you're a poxed bastard. Now, as appealing of an idea as it would be, on a war game level to arm all of your British troops of this era with a Baker rifle, it just wouldn't be practical yet until the Minié ball comes about. You're just too slow and you're gonna lose the edge of the speed of firepower when you're fighting the French. If the French aren't using slower firing weapons, then why would the smaller British army want to do that? It's a bad idea. Now let's go over some features of the Baker rifle. And to clarify, nothing about the Baker rifle is really that revolutionary for its day. Yet again, there were far cooler weapons of this era, but it's still kind of neat to go over. We have our bayonet socket for the sword bayonet. Fixed swords, we got our ramrod, which is pretty cool because you pull it straight out and go straight in. Sling swivels, important for this era. A flip-up rear sight for taking longer shots. Impressive, a variable optic on a musket rifle. Then we have our lock and hammer back here, or just our flintlock setup. We have our brass furniture right here, along with a butt plate in the back. All in all, very simple of a weapon. I will say, as far as all my muzzleloaders go, my small handful of them, the Baker rifle look is just so iconic. And I think it has to do with just that, chonky looking barrel, that bayonet lug, and then the brass patch box in the back. I love it. Sexy. POV, you're a Frenchman. Now, due to the gun being shorter and bayonets still being a massive part of this era of warfare, a sword bayonet was developed for the Baker rifle. Honestly, kind of sick. Never knew I needed a sword bayonet in my life. I actually dig the sword bayonet a lot. I think it looks awesome. And of course, the command, fix swords, sounds freaking fix bayonets! It gets me jazzed up. I will say shooting with a sword on your gun, probably not ideal, but by the time you fix swords, the enemy's probably pretty close where you don't have to be as accurate as you would be, so I'm not too worried about it. It should be an easy shot if you're a chosen man. Compared to my Virginia flintlock, the Baker rifle is far more of a military-driven rifle. Now, besides Richard Sharp, Thomas Plunkett is probably one of the most famous users of the Baker rifle. Thomas Plunkett was born in 1785 in Newton County, Wexford. He enlisted in the British Army's 95th Rifles in May of 1805, and then in 1807 was sent to South America to participate in the British invasion of the River Plate. During the engagement with Spanish forces and in Buenos Aires, Plunkett killed approximately 20 Spanish soldiers while sniping from a rooftop, and alongside other members of his unit before retreating with Spanish artillery attacked their position with grape shot. Plunkett also shot and killed a Spanish officer waving a white handkerchief who was possibly attempting to arrange a truce, which resulted in more Spanish artillery bombardments, ultimately contributing to the British surrender and the end of the invasions. During the Battle of Cacabellos on the 3rd of January 1809, Plunkett ran forward from the British line about 90 meters, 100 yards, laid down in a supine position in the snow and killed a French Brigadier General Auguste François Marie de Colbert Chabagnat with his Baker rifle. He quickly reloaded and killed Colbert's aide-de-camp, La Tour Malberg, who had rushed to the aid of Colbert, demonstrating that the first shot had not been a fluke. Plunkett only just made it back to the British line, avoiding a dozen charging French cavalrymen, but the deaths of the two officers were sufficient to throw the French attack into disarray.
The legend of Tom Plunkett is not lost on historians whatsoever. It is, however, a very hotly contested distance at which he was able to take out that French general.
Right now we're about, perhaps I've had too much caffeine. I'd say about 186 yards away. So here's the thing, I've been hearing conflicting things about the Tom Plunkett shot. I've heard anywhere up from 600 yards to 200 yards. Given my skill set and how much I suck, and the fact that we're going for a headshot, this feels about right. I am not feeling very confident in my skills. Perhaps the harsh reality is that I am truly not a chosen man, but we'll give it a go. We got a camera down range, let's give it a shot. Only fought the Russians, aye. Only fought the Russians, John Francois. Oh, dude, my knees are killing me. Okay. Ain't not a worse thing in battle to hear that from your flint. My God, the man does the Baker rifle on us. I don't see any hits on paper. Perhaps the safest thing to be downrange right now is that target. Try again. Try again. Be a lot better if I had a spotter, not a camera guy. What's going on, dude? Oh, man. For sure, headshot for sure. I can feel it. I like how cattywampus our Our spotting's yeah, still nothing. Guys, as cool as I think the Baker rifle is, I think I should just stick to a Brown Bess based on my shooting skills. We'll try one more. God dang, she's getting cooking. You know, I think by now we've established that I can't hit this. Let's go standing. The flinch is real. I kept my eyes open for that one. No way!
You got it?
No. Oh, yeah, I can't lie, dude. That Frenchman's suppressed. Well, lads, the Tom Plunkett test, I failed. Also, we're Lawrence of Arabia maxing. We're going for the Anglo and the desert aesthetic. How'd I do? One thing I do love about the story of Tom Plunkett is the just prowess of skill and agency that you would develop, you know, your martial skill with this weapon that you've been living with day in and day out. I'm always fascinated by those types of stories. I'm also fascinated by the juxtaposition of an era of mass volley fire. You have someone that is a marksman and able to take these very accurate shots on high value targets out to distance. I think that is just fascinating for the time period, and definitely would be something in a more newer version of the era. In pop culture, the Baker rifle has recently showed up in Ridley Scott's Napoleon movie. In that movie, a green jacket is armed with a Baker rifle, but he has a very interesting modification. He has a telescope attached to his rifle.
You sometimes hear the whispers of a flintlock rifle equipped with a telescope, but it's merely a primitive amalgamation of ideas that would soon reveal a new type of warfare.
I am not a big fan of Ridley Scott's Napoleon. I will just have to stick to Waterloo from 1970. That being said, I say we give the telescope Baker rifle sniper a shot. Have you gentlemen ever seen All British Sniper? The true story about a 95th rifleman that took out Napoleon? Right, gentlemen, the way I see it is that if you get me here and this Baker rifle within 1 mile of Napoleon, well, pack your bags, gentlemen, the war's over. Target acquired. Surely this won't go wrong. I'm a sniper. Let's go check it out. Oh, oh no! It's an A zone! That was, to be fair, like 50 yards. I thought surely there was gonna be no way. And we have an A zone. What are the odds? I guess the odds are up there, but what are them? Try it again, I guess. Farewell and adieu to you Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. Gentlemen, would we all like to sing sea shanties together? I'm looking for a few good men. No way! What the heck? Gentlemen! By God, man, I'm flabbergasted. I put zero thought into really just, I essentially torqued it down with tape right at the front sight block. Yeah, as far as Napoleonic rifles go, 50 yards squared away, dude. Pretty much, I'm just like looking right here. Do we dare try the farthest target? Bad news, Mr. Letellier. The storm's on our doorstep, sir. And we have no hits. Let's make haste. Good God, man! I can't believe it worked! It only was successful up close, Mr. Letellier, you damn dirty frog. I lost my composure, I'm sorry. I heard that this whole Baker sniper rifle was a potential troll from Ridley Scott. He had to know when he was making this movie that the movie was not going to be historically accurate, and I think from what I heard, it was like a troll to the historical accuracy crowd. So if that's the case, then you always got to respect the player of the games. Now, of course, the far more significant pop culture appearance of the Baker rifle would be the Sharp series. From Jones to get to this whole video. Oh my God. The Sharp series, written by Bernard Cornwell and adapted to TV, starring Sean Bean, would send me onto the most just nerdy path to creating this video possibly imaginable. I think I truly have to blame my brother who got me into the Sharp series. He was like, hey, you should check out this show. It's called Sharp. I think if you're a big Bernard Cornwell guy, you'll like it. Because before this, I was into his Archer series about the medieval longbowmen. And then I think I even like the Sharp series way more because it's just very fascinating. I don't get as tired shooting a rifle musket than I do shooting a medieval longbow. Anyway. Oh God. This episode features another female star. I'm gonna sleep with her. You lucky bastard. I really do doubt at the time of my brother telling me this, he was gonna watch me go full tilt into the LARP of the 95th Rifles, or the LARP of Sean Bean, I should say. Now, not only did I watch all the episodes, I have read all of the books. I'm quite the method LARPer. I will say on a personal note, I think I very much recommend the books a lot. Both have their charm, but the books just aren't constrained by a budget and can be far more grandeur and epic and even more with the lore. You know, it's just kind of like how television or movies go, where they have to condense a story down, whereas the books don't have to worry about that. So it's like in the show, it's the Battle of Waterloo with the South Essex having like 40 guys, and it's like, damn, this is epic. But you know, like it's way more epic and grandeur in the books, so I would encourage you to go check them out if you haven't already. I think they're very much worth the read. I think I may go over the Sharp series in another YouTube video, but I don't know if it'll fit this channel. That's a story for a different time.
Sharp is fictional, but he feels so real, so English. He is a soldier's soldier. He's everything a rifleman would aspire to be. But he yet again was just that, fictional. Where is the truth in Richard Sharp?
My love of the Baker rifle, of course, stems from Bernard Cornwell's writing. Now, I don't fully agree with his tap-spit or spit-tap method. That being said, it is where all of this spawned from. When I started the journey of getting the Baker rifle, I was not expecting it to be so expensive, so time-consuming, and it really was a labor of love, and a labor of love for the game itself. If you yourself want a Baker rifle, then it's going to be pretty expensive. Not only will it be very expensive, but it's going to take months to make. I personally got mine made by Cash Took Raider on Instagram, and he got the parts from the rifle shop. Now, Veteran Arms does sell a smoothbore version of the Baker rifle, but I wanted the real McCoy. Because I am so obsessed with this, I just couldn't have anything less than. Now, Cash Took Raider on Instagram, yet again, did a really wonderful job handcrafting this weapon. It took a while, but I think it's well worth it. It is going to be one of the more rare firearms that I technically even own and that are even out there. There's not many Baker rifles floating about. That being said, to me, it was well worth it because not only did I want a significant piece of military technological history, but I also wanted a significant piece of pop culture history that I'm very fond of and thoroughly enjoy. Really is something special to me, and it's one of those bigger picture things where I'm looking forward to passing this on long after I'm gone to my descendants, and that's one of those reasons where I just absolutely love it. There's just so much historical significance along with the pop culture nature of it that I had to have it, and I think it's really cool, and I've been really excited to go over this for a bit now on the channel, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, I got nothing else for you. I'll catch you on the flip. There's 40 shillings on the drum for those who volunteer to come.
Oh, I'm gonna come.